In today's video, we're going to be talking about upgrading a system to Voiceware 4.1. So let's go ahead and jump in. First thing you're going to need to do is understand the type of hardware you have on site. Generally, you're going to have one of two options. If you're using a Series 2, you need to check and see if you're using black or white tabbed cards. You also need to check to make sure you're using the latest TDM processor card and that processor card has the latest firmware. You can see listed there which versions of the processor card and which versions of firmware are needed. To check the version of card you're using, it's simply listed on the card itself. So you'll just need to look on the card itself and it'll list what version of card it is. To check the firmware, you can use either the B feature GUI or you can use a serial connection to check the card version. If you need assistance doing this, please reach out to support and we'll be happy to help you through it. If you're using an external server, you'll need to know if you're using an additional Digium or extra NIC card. This is rare, but you'll need to note that information for when you place your sales order. Here's a screenshot of the Series 2 programming. You can see right here that the TDM processor card's firmware version is listed there. Next, let's talk about ordering the upgrade. So you're going to need to reach out to sales and you're going to need to order your upgrade. You need to make sure that you know if you're using black or white tabbed cards, if you have the latest TDM processor card, and if there's an external Digium card in use. These are all things you need to make us aware of so that we can send you the right equipment. Next, let's talk about preparing for the upgrade. You're going to want to log into Voiceware and you're going to want to make note, especially if you're using a 1.0 system, on the NAT settings for all your devices. Note also that due to network interface naming changes, the existing spans that you have will need to be deleted and rebuilt once you do your restore process. So next, let's talk about the upgrade process itself. So on-site, day of upgrade, what you're going to want to do if you're using an external server and if you're not swapping out any Digium cards and if space allows, it's generally a good idea to go ahead and mount that equipment. Get that powered on. Next, you're going to want to log in using a screen keyboard and using the command nmtui, change the IP address of your system to match the IP address of the existing system. That'll prepare you to just swap it over after the next few steps are completed. Then you're going to take a backup from your existing system and save it to local storage. If you're using a Series 2, it's very important to pull the B12, B11, all of those TDM programming settings. It's very important to pull those out before you swap over, especially if you're swapping the TDM processor card, as those settings are located there. So you're going to want to use the B feature GUI for this, and there is an option in the settings page to go to the Series 2 files, and you can simply pull a copy of all of your B programming and then save that to local storage. If that's not an option, if you're using an older system, you're going to want to do a pscons and then a B72 to dump that information into the log file that you can see there. If you need assistance doing this or any step here, of course you can reach out to support and we'll be happy to walk you through it. However, once you get that log file, you're going to need to take that log file and copy the data out. You can't just leave it on the system because that system is going to be replaced. And you can use different programs to go in and grab that file or copy and paste it out somehow, but you're going to want to have that. Then you're going to power off the existing equipment. Next, you're going to want to install the SBC and TDM processor card if needed for a Series 2, or move the networking cables off the existing equipment to the new equipment. Note that E0 and 1 might be switched from previous hardware versions, so make sure you're paying attention to the labels. Then you're going to want to upload and restore your backup to the new hardware. Next, you're going to want to restore the TDM programming using the Series 2 files page. This is needed if you swapped out the TDM processor card. If you weren't able to pull the Series 2 programming via a file via the GUI, and you only have that log file that got dumped out into the PS messages log file, you're going to want to then program B12 and all the B settings manually using that file as a reference. Then you're going to verify the license has been transferred over to the new system. You can do that by going into the About and then License page. Next, you're going to set the time zone. That can be done in the Settings page. And keep in mind, you will need to reboot the system in order to get it to apply these new time settings. Also, you can install any previously used SSL certificates by going in the command line and using the command Voiceware SSL as root. This is not commonly needed, but is fairly easy to do. Next, if the previous system was monitored by Nagios and you'd like to continue that monitoring, simply let us know and we'll go ahead and install that monitoring. If you'd like to discontinue monitoring, also let us know so that we can pull that system out of our Nagios monitoring system. Alright, so that should conclude the actual upgrade. So the next thing you're going to want to do is go through and verify some of the settings. You're going to, as I mentioned before, set the time zone. If it's not already set and your time isn't correct, you're going to want to make sure you check your time zone. You can simply check the time on any page by looking at the top left-hand side of the page. You're going to want to set NAT for all devices that need it. This is especially important if you've upgraded from a 1.0 version, as NAT settings aren't translated over. You're also going to want to set the default outbound trunk in the settings page if it was set in your previous system. This is another setting that doesn't seem to be carried over in all cases. Lastly, we have testing. You want to test logging into the configurator and browser console at the front desk. You're going to want to test all spans and trunks. Ensure that all devices are registered to the new system. Note that in some cases, rebooting a phone may be required in order to get it to re-register. You're going to test inbound, outbound, and emergency calling from admin and at least 1 or 2 guest phones. And you're going to want to test wake-up calls. Lastly, test and ensure the PMS interface is online. In addition to your testing, it may also be a good idea to show the front desk staff and management some of the new features that are available in 4.1. Specifically, the phone in the browser console may be a great feature. You could also do something like add a conference bridge to the system. These things are great to do to help show the hotel's management why they did the upgrade, that there are new features available, and it wasn't just an upgrade only to do stuff in the back end, but there are some new user-facing features that they can make use of. And that concludes our overview of the upgrade. As I've mentioned before, if you have any questions or run into any problems, you can always reach out to support. Thank you very much for watching, and we hope you have some great upgrades.